It's now my pleasure to introduce Tia Loftsgard and her topic, Navigating the Ever-Evolving Organic Marketplace. Tia is the Executive Director of the Canada Organic Trade Association. She's worked in organic and international agriculture for over 25 years. She got her start in organic by founding the first ever fair trade organic chocolate company, Camino, and has held senior roles with Fair Trade International and the Fair Trade Certification Organization. So please join me in welcoming Tia.
All right, well, hello, and thank you, everybody. It's nice to be home. This is my home province, even though I'm living in Ottawa these days. And it's really good just to be back in Saskatchewan with all of our people. Our association has been in existence actually since 1985. We started off as a bunch of traders from Canada that realized there was nothing kind of in place in Canada for manufacturers and trade. And they joined the US Association, Organic Trade Association, and quickly realized that they needed to have a Canadian-made solution. So in 2007, we became our own legal entity up here in Canada, and have been working on all sorts of issues when it comes to the maturing of the market, really looking at how to advance when it comes to market access, really doing a lot of B2B matching between businesses and producers and manufacturers. We also work, of course, on all the trade issues like the organic equivalencies, so we run the technical advisory committee. We also, of course, do all sorts of fun initiatives, so we run, it used to be Organic Week, and now we've moved it over into Organic Month. So we really try to get engaged when it comes to the overall getting retailers involved, getting a celebratory moment for organic, and we have been partnering with all the different provincial and national associations to make that happen over the years. So thank you very much for getting that up. Okay, so I've just cut into this slide a little bit, but just to give you a sense that we are a national not-for-profit association and membership-based, so many of you, even most of the provincial associations are members. We have certifiers. We have everybody from farmers to retailers, manufacturers, and in between. And just to highlight that this is meant to be sort of a forum where the whole supply chain comes together and works on common issues. So when it comes to the common needs, of course, data. I'm going to be giving you a lot of good data here today. We do a lot of industry intelligence, market reports, et cetera, just to give you a sense of where production's headed, where the market's headed, and give you a sense also of the global trade situation. And public advocacy, we are one of the first registered lobbyists. I don't love that word, and I always say, well, I'm fighting for the good guy, but it's the reason that I had to move to Ottawa, was to be in the face of government all the time. We also do work with all the provincial associations with a big report called The State of Organics, and we evaluate how the provinces are advancing on multiple topics. So that's a tool for each one of the provinces to be able to advance in their own community, and for us to take it to the federal level together. So of course, regulatory affairs, I always say everybody else's problem is my job, and I'm happy to have that job, just to really make sure that when there's any kind of a barrier that comes up, that we're here to assist and move ahead the sector. Of course, the last couple years, we've really had to focus on the GE issue. We've had to focus on the glyphosate MRL issue. These are things that we actually had to take our consumer lists and actually make them sign petitions and get really activisty, which is not something we usually do, but these issues were such an important issue that we really used the power of the people that we have committed to organic as the consumers to move ahead. So let's get into some of the new market data. So you can see that we do an organic market report every 3 years. And the reason for that is it's so expensive to buy the data from Nielsen. So what you're seeing here on the screen is numbers that were up until the end of 2023. And it is something that we have to do an estimation for, because the food and beverage sales sold within grocery stores is what's captured at the market, at the till. But we don't they don't capture the market sales for farmers market or Costco. Whole Foods is excluded, all the health food stores. So there's many areas where we have to do estimations. But you can see that in 2023, it was $9 billion in sales. And I want to address, Jim had made a statement that we were at 10 billion. That was when we had to use an estimation based off of our prior growth rate. And I think we all have been feeling that the market slowed down. We've felt that inflation has been a factor. When I say that it has gone from 10 billion to 9 billion, that is because one was just a different methodology. If we look at the year-over-year Nielsen sales, organic went down by 1%. Conventional sales grew by 6%. That's the real facts. That's what we actually can measure. And I want to just kind of get into sort of when it comes to where we stand on sort of the North American sales side. We account for about 4% of all the global sales in the world. The United States, of course, is the lion's share of North American sales at 46%. But cumulatively together, we make up practically 50% of the consumer market. So I particularly say this because when it comes to understanding where your market opportunities are, it's right here at home. And it is right across the border. Of course, we've got lots of sales that we're doing to Europe and Japan, and especially as new equivalencies have come up with Mexico and South Korea. There is opportunities that are making it easier because we've got new trade arrangements going on there. So, but I love the fact that we're still the 5th consumer market in the world. And our market share has gone from 3.3% last time we measured to 3.4%. So it is actually growing a little bit in regards to market overall share. And you can see the breakdown of the national is 5.7% market share for overall vegetables, 4.9% for fruits, small amount for meat, 0.5%, and packaged foods. Now, I want you to try to remember these numbers because I'm going to show you some Saskatchewan stats further on so that you can get a sense of what your market's like here. And you can see that the food and beverage sector has encountered a 10% growth since 2020. So even though I gave you the minus 1%, you know, if we look at it over a little bit of a longer time, we've still seen significant growth over the last many years. And in Saskatchewan, so when we get the Nielsen studies that we buy, they always push together Manitoba and Saskatchewan. So this is the first time that we're breaking it out, and I'll tell you the methodology that we used. We took the population share between the two provinces and split it. So you can see that we've got 45.4% of the sales. So out of the Nielsen data, which again is restricted just to the grocery store sales, is 143.1 million. And that is in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, but if you break that out with the Saskatchewan sales, it equates to about 65 million. And of course, I put a little disclaimer in regards to who it does not include. But at least it's the first time that we've kind of really broke that out. We could go back and do that for prior years, and we'd be happy to do that just to kind of get a sense of where things have been going on the grocery store sales here. In regards to the market share, you can see that you're below the national market share at 2.5%, and your vegetables are quite high though at 5.1, 4.2% for fruit, pretty high on packaged food, 2.4, and meat's even lower than the national average, quite small. So it's pretty good to see, like we've given it to you in a dollar value there too. The largest, of course, is packaged foods. That's what you're selling the most of here, recorded in the grocery stores, followed by vegetables, then fruits, and then fresh meat. So let's talk about operators, because that's what the rest of this is going to be about. It's about what's been happening with overall operators. So the operators is a term that we use for everybody who's certified. It could be manufacturers, producers, farmers, aquaculture, etc. And so you can see that this is not the rosy scene that we've seen for year after year. We've always seen growth happening in the sector. And we're going through a wave here. And hopefully everybody's going to hold through and hold tight. But right now we've seen a decline of 144 operators since 2022. And this change, of course, if you look at it from 2019 when we started the charts here, it is a plus 0.2% growth. So that's not very significant. We've seen a lot of waves come and go over the years. Of these numbers that we've included, not everybody is the Canada Organic Regime certified. We also take into account the BC independent program and the Quebec provincial program. So our numbers include that. We thought we'd just break that out for you. There's around 656 that are actually provincially certified only in those two provinces. And then outside of that, and I don't think we think about this very much, there are 1,315 operators around the world that are actually certified to the Canada Organic Regime. This could be in anywhere from Mexico to Thailand to anywhere in which we do not have an equivalency arrangement. And these really are producers in other regions that are needing to be core certified in order to sell into our country. So now we get into the Saskatchewan numbers. So overall, Saskatchewan represents about 11% of all the operators in the country. And of that, you are 13% of all the growers or all the farmers, 3% of the total livestock operators, and 5% of the processors. So those numbers don't surprise me. It feels right. And what has been happening? So since the last time that we did the study in 2022, you can see that there's been a loss in Saskatchewan of 63 operators total. It's a decline of 42 farmers, a decline of 7 livestock operators, an increase of 3 processors, and then just overall, 44% of all the loss of all the operators across the whole country were coming from Saskatchewan. And as we get into the next couple slides, you'll see, and I'm sure you've all been feeling it, the market's been going crazy here, the prices have been going crazy on all the commodities, and we've tracked many of the different products in the country, in Saskatchewan, line by line, so you can see what's been happening in regards to acreage over the last 5 years. So let's just go macro first. There has been a growth in acreage despite a decline in operators for the whole country. So it's a 0.8% growth since 2022. But if we look at it since 2019, again, a decline, 7% decline. We have, we always break out the maple, because maple is huge in Quebec and it tends to skew the numbers a little bit. So we just wanted to kind of highlight maple's still growing. This is the amount of acres that's accounted for there, mostly all in Quebec. And that it did account for 14.7% of acres overall. Let's move on now to your acres here in Saskatchewan. So you can see between 2022 and 2023, there has been a small decline at keeping in around 1 million acres. And you can see that Saskatchewan is 34.3 of the overall acres around the whole country. So you are the biggest, and you are very significant. So I think this is why we have this amazing conference here, because most of the operators are here and significant acreage. So let's break it down. Field crops, obviously, huge, 65%. Pasture and grassland, green manures, and natural areas are around 33%. And then a teeny tiny little bit, 0.9% of fresh vegetables and root crops. Now, I know you want to know what's going on with those field crops, so let's get into it. So we did a whole breakout of what is it that you're majority producing. And of course, we've got wheat, oat, flax, kamut, barley, peas dried, lentils, mustard, hemp, beans dried, rye, in that order. But what we wanted to do was kind of look at, obviously around 48% of this is wheat. Oats are super significant. And when it comes to all the things that are in this mixed crop category of 1%, that is everything from spelt on down. So a lot of the specialty crops, when it comes to quinoa or sunflower, buckwheat, etc., there's very, very small amount of that grown here in Saskatchewan, and so we had to put it all together at the 1%. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about global trade for the moment. So obviously, I don't think all of this product is actually sold here in Saskatchewan nor in other areas of Canada. So in order to trade this product internationally, there are organic equivalency arrangements and soon to be one formal trade agreement happening with the European Union. But this has started from the moment that we had the Canada Organic regime put in place in 15 years ago. So happy anniversary, everybody. It was in June of 2009 that the Canada Organic regime became enforced, and the equivalency with the United States also got signed on the exact same day. So that is one of the most successful arrangements that we've had to date, and next year it sounds like there's going to be a renegotiation of that. When I say that term, that does not mean it's going away. It means the terms will change. We don't know what's going to be changing. I think we're all a little bit more fearful as of this morning's results to see what's going to happen, but most of the things are really important for us to evaluate because we've had so many changes to our standards since 2009, so have they. So a side-by-side assessment needs to happen. And in the new U.S. Strengthening Organic Enforcement Bill that came into place, they've actually made it mandatory that every 5 years all of their equivalencies are reviewed. So I don't think anybody needs to be scared. I think there will be some changes coming. But we'll wait to see if there's anything really significant, and we'll continue to keep you updated as we lead on that process through the technical committee. The European Union is the second one that we actually had our arrangement with, and it is time again. They have made significant changes in Europe to their arrangement, and they are actually mandating that it has to change into a formal trade agreement. And so it doesn't matter what country you're in, they're forcing every single country around the world to actually now change it into a formal trade agreement. So by the end of this year, we anticipate that the process will be finished. We've been working on this for quite a few years in order to do the side-by-side assessment. I think there's actually going to be great news that happens. They're very inspired by the way that we work our system. I think they're taking some notes in regards to how to have a critical variance with somebody like the United States that has things like hydroponics that are not accepted in most places around the world. So we've heard really good things, and it sounds like we will probably be able to include our aquaculture standard also, which to date has not been included in the equivalency arrangement. So stay tuned. We will be giving you lots of webinars. You can always follow our YouTube page and kind of follow us online just to see when these updates are coming. And then I won't go through all the rest of them except for to say that the Mexico and South Korea are our newest ones. South Korea was something that has been tried for many, many, many years, and we just did a trade mission to South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan in order to help support Canadian trade. And South Korea is an amazing market for organic products. So if you have not considered selling there and you have a processed product, please consider talking to me about your interest in South Korean sales. The arrangement currently is limited not to commodities. It cannot just be a single ingredient product. It has to be a processed product. So that is one of the criteria that they put in place. And Mexico was a one-year agreement, and they decided to extend it. It sounds like it's extended for another 3 years while they continue to evaluate, et cetera. And I can tell you that the United States is not happy that Canada and Mexico signed an arrangement. It is something that the U.S. doesn't like, the fact that Mexico could go around and come into Canada and then enter the United States. So that's ongoing discussions, and I imagine that will continue to be a discussion with on the U.S.-Canada arrangement. And then there's 2 countries in the world that you can actually export to that accept core. So you don't need to do anything except for respect their labeling criteria: United Arab Emirates and Hong Kong. And so we've actually got an upcoming webinar, I believe it's in 2 weeks, to talk about what's the opportunities in Hong Kong if you're interested in export there. Okay, so quick on the imports and exports. And I always disclaim that these numbers are terrible. We do not have enough data coming measured by the Canadian government. It's something we've been advocating for years. The import numbers here are based off of only around 67 products. So they are measured, and you can see that there has been a decrease. Now, if you ask me what exactly all those products are, let's see if I did not do an overall, but it's mostly fruit and vegetables. We're not getting a lot of really good data out of there, and Despite our advocacy, apparently it's not going to happen that we're going to get more HS code data, but there's other methods being discussed on how we can get import data through a better method. So stay tuned, let's hope. But let's just break out the Saskatchewan imports. You can see that there was a 1.1% increase, and you can see that majority of that is coming in from the United States. More than half of it is coming up from the United States to Saskatchewan. Here's your top 10 products that are measured. Again, why we have a code for tomatoes and not wheat, I'd love to know that. That would be interesting. But you can see that there are a handful of products here that definitely are kind of constituting what's coming into Saskatchewan from other regions. And you can see also, and you guys will just have to look at this slide afterwards, but our number one trade partner is the United States, followed by Mexico. That's not shocking. We've got the CUSMA arrangement. And you can see a sense of Peru's going to be things like coffee, so is Ecuador, so is Ethiopia. So it just really depends on what products are being tracked that come into play here. And then, as I mentioned, hopefully, this is something that was promised to us at the Organic Value Chain Roundtable in 2017, that there's all these new codes that are linked to the regulatory requirement of having a Safe Food for Canadians license. And so these new organic codes have been in development for years and years and years. And most of the codes are created. The last bucket that needs to be done is all the packaged goods, which is the largest one. It sounds like we have our Organic Summit conference coming up on November 18th, and it sounds like CFIA is going to make an announcement there of potentially being done. I don't know. We'll see. But once it is, organic products that come into our country will have to actually use the OGD code to indicate that it's organic, and eventually you're going to have to upload your organic certificate to the system. So these are just some of the new measures that the Canadian government's putting in place to measure imports and make sure that our equivalency arrangements are respected, especially for any critical variances. So I think this is good, and I think this is a really good move for improved organic integrity on imports. So let's talk about exports. There's really only 17 codes, so this isn't fantastic either, but you can see that we've got an increase in imports or exports going out at 23% over the 2022 numbers. And there was a new code created. So that was blueberries, which doesn't impact Saskatchewan. It was more from British Columbia. And the way that new codes are determined of whether they're happening or not is basically if the US creates a new code, apparently there's an opportunity for our Canadian government to as well. And I don't know why we're so tied to it, but that's just the way it is. So exports specifically from Saskatchewan, you can see there was actually a decline in 2023 and a significant decline since 2021. Saskatchewan is the second largest exporter after Quebec, accounting for 26% of all exports. And here is a really good chart to show you inflation. So this is, you can see that we've compared the volume to the value, and you can see that there's been price increases for sure. I'll go into more detail here so that you can actually see where those numbers are coming from. So these are the products that are tracked out of those 17 codes. Green lentils is your largest export, followed by yellow peas, red lentils, durum wheat, linseed, oats, red spring wheat, and then you get into some interesting coding that happens by the government. Lentils miscellaneous, barley, and then red spring durum, they comboed that because I guess it's exported together, and then soybeans. So you can see though what we broke out was what is your percentage of exports according to the whole country. And out of green lentils, 98% is coming from Saskatchewan, 99% of yellow peas. So these are probably not very shocking to you, but I think it's good for you guys to have the stats in your hands. And so now this to close out the last bit. And I feel like I'm leaving you with sort of, depressing news just to see how much turbulence this is. This is all acreage. This is all export sales. This is over a 5-year period what has been happening in regards to exports from Saskatchewan on the products that are tracked. So you can see it's been quite turbulent for, we had a bit of a growth period in yellow peas and green lentils, and then both of them have nosedived, and we're not seeing them really come up that much. you can see barley's grown like crazy since 2021. And I asked my data person, why is that? And she said, because they never tracked it before. So this is actually a new stat altogether, and obviously barley was traded before that. It's just the government started tracking it. And then you can see with red spring wheat and durum wheat, there's again been a bit of a decline there in recent years. And durum wheat, again, up and down, and then red spring wheat. So we've got quite a bit of turbulence. Oats is seeming like it's kind of starting to stabilize a little bit, but again, decline in 2023, and then red lentils. So I'm sure you're all going to get a copy of these slides, and just to make sure that, you know, we can do these kinds of reports. We have been in discussions with the PODF crew and Scott Shields from Grain Millers in order to do more deeper analysis. If anybody's interested, please talk to Scott. He's trying to rabble-rouse to see if we can get the next Prairie Organic Development Report generated. But I think having this data, having the information that really breaks down the acreage side of this, I'm showing you what's happening on the sales side of things, but you know, you got to really match the two up. And then lastly is soybeans. So I will leave it there, and you know, if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. I'm probably pretty quick on my timing. I'm a little bit early, but yeah, do we want to take some questions? Okay. Any questions? Crickets. It's depressing, I know. It was always so up, right, with all the sales side of things. So, I mean, that's really, I think, where we need to work together. And this is the work that we've been doing with Canadian Organic Growers and Organic Federation of Canada and ourselves is there's no sense producing organic if you don't have the market. So we're working really tightly together. We're leading a market development task force. COG's leading the production task force. And we're really working together on making sure that we get better data, because data is what we need in order to make crucial business decisions. So we have had a meeting with the Deputy Minister of Agriculture just a couple months ago, and he really understood for the first time. I felt like we were having a really good conversation about how you can't really advance as a sector unless you have good data in order to do good analysis for your business. And the banks need it. The banks need that trajectory. They need to have a sense of what they're funding. So I can't see if there's questions, so just go ahead.
It's Allison. Hi.
Hi, Allison.
Hi. Thank you so much for this, Tia. It's always awesome to get all of this data. Just a couple questions. Is the Manitoba and Alberta data kind of similar to Saskatchewan, or is Saskatchewan like an anomaly? Like, is it on its own?
I honestly didn't look at it. We just broke out the Saskatchewan one, but I can get back to you in regards to the Manitoba data.
Just curious.
Yeah.
And then
Are you talking about on the production side or the?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have not broke that out. We
Okay.
just, since we were presenting here, we just did Saskatchewan. Yeah.
Okay. And then my second question is the dip. This is a really weird. The dip in production and exports in 2021.
Yeah. You want me to go flip back?
Well, just that was the driest year ever on the prairies, and I'm just wondering your thoughts on how, if that's impacting it, or if you think it's maybe more a loss of acreage.
That is a good question, because we didn't match it up with the acreage piece there.
Okay.
So yeah, that is hard to say. I mean, that I felt like in everything that we've seen, 2021 still was sort of coasting, like post-COVID. And 2022, just everything really fell apart. It felt like in 2022 from acreage, production side, and sales. So,
Yeah.
but overall, you know, I think inflation has been a big part of it, where people are just pulling back, and it doesn't matter if you're a consumer or a business. I think that inflation affected everything.
Yeah, it's hard to tease it apart. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next president of the United States has announced a 10% tariff on everything. Any idea how that might impact us?
No. I mean, all I can say is we haven't negotiated CUSMA yet, right? And I think that's going to be something that the Canadian government is going to need to hear from everybody, anybody doing any international business, to make sure that your voice is heard and make sure that they negotiate well, because that next CUSMA arrangement is going to be critical, just to make sure that we're heard. So no, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I think the louder we are as Canadians, we're going to get them to be our advocates. And of course, they don't want that. The Canadian government doesn't want to have tariffs on any of their products going to the United States. The lucky thing is there's a lot of regulatory harmonization working groups, et cetera, with the United States. They're supposed to be our best friend. So who knows if maybe Canada can get away with a special negotiated deal versus, other trade partners. Yeah. All right. If there's no other questions, thank you very much for your time. Take care.